Roughly 6 to 8% of people living with adrenal insufficiency experience a life-threatening adrenal crisis every single year. When you consider that this is a condition where your body simply stops producing the hormones necessary for handling stress, those numbers represent a constant underlying tension for thousands of families. We're looking at a diagnosis that doesn't just change your diet or your energy levels, it fundamentally alters how you move through the world. And yet, for so many, the moment of diagnosis is followed by a massive information vacuum. Clinical pamphlets can only tell you so much about how to actually live when your body's fight or flight system is effectively broken.
That vacuum is exactly why a resource like My Adrenal Life has become such a cornerstone for this community. When you're dealing with Addison's disease or any form of adrenal insufficiency, the medical side is only half the battle. You have the replacement hormones, sure, but then you're faced with the now what? How do you handle a sudden flu? What happens if you get stuck in a high-stress traffic jam? The gap between a doctor's office and the kitchen table is vast. My Adrenal Life, which was founded by Rick Deisler, really grew out of that exact frustration. He was a caregiver first, watching his wife Kristen navigate the complexities of the disease. And he saw that while the doctors were managing the clinical markers, there wasn't a manual for the lived experience.
It's interesting that it started from a caregiver's perspective because the burden on the family is often overlooked. If the patient is the one whose body is struggling, the caregiver is the one constantly scanning for the invisible signs of a crash. I've seen reports from the National Adrenal Diseases Foundation suggesting that even when patients are trained on emergency injections, a huge percentage, sometimes over 40%, find themselves unable to self-administer during a crisis because of the cognitive confusion that sets in. That makes the caregiver's role not just supportive, but literally life-saving.
Precisely, and that's a heavy weight to carry without a support system. Rick's background is actually quite unique for this role. He served in the Navy and worked on cancer treatment machines, so he has this technical discipline mind, but he also spent years as a pastor. You can see both of those influences in My Adrenal Life. There's a technical precision in how they explain the science of cortisol and aldosterone, but there's also this deep pastoral compassion for the emotional toll. He realized early on that if you don't empower the family and friends, the patient is essentially walking a tightrope without a net.
You mentioned the net, and it seems like the Facebook community is the physical manifestation of that. There are thousands of members in that private group. Why is a social media group so vital for something as specific as Addisons? Is it just about venting, or is there a more practical exchange happening there?
It's both, but the practical side is what keeps people safe. Think about the sick day rules. In the medical world, you're told to stress dose, essentially take extra steroids if you're ill or under major stress. But stress is subjective. A newly diagnosed person might wonder, I have a job interview tomorrow. Is that enough stress to warrant an extra dose? In that Facebook group, you can ask that at 2 a.m. and get responses from people who have navigated that exact scenario. They offer validation that you aren't just tired or being dramatic. When your body doesn't produce cortisol, things that are minor for others become physiological hurdles for you.
I can see how that reduces the isolation, but I want to push back a bit on the accessibility of this information. There's a lot of medical jargon and endocrinology, ACTH levels, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axes. It's a lot for a layperson. How does the platform actually solve the literacy problem? It's one thing to have a community, but if the education is still buried in academic language, does it actually help the average person?
That's one of the specific goals Rick set out to achieve. He talks about translating the medical guidance into plain language. If you look at the My Adrenal Life website or Rick's book, Understanding and Managing Adrenal Insufficiency, the focus isn't on impressing people with big words. It's on real-world application. For example, explaining how heat or emotional grief affects cortisol demand. A study in the journal Nature or a clinical report might explain the biochemistry of the HPA axis, but Rick's resources explain why you might feel a crash coming on after a heated argument. They use analogies and clear guides that help a spouse or a friend recognize those early warning signs like irritability or assault cravings before it escalates into a full-blown crisis.
The salt craving is such a specific, almost strange symptom of Addison's. It's because of the aldosterone deficiency, right? The body can't hold on to sodium. It seems like the kind of detail a friend would just laugh off if they didn't know the medical context. They'd just think you really like pickles. Not that your blood pressure is about to bottom out.
Exactly. And that's why the public Facebook page and the shareable content are so important. It isn't just for the person with the disease. It's a tool for them to hand to their social circle and say, look, when I say I need salt or when I seem suddenly confused, this is why. It builds a bridge of understanding. The podcast does the same thing. It's available on all major platforms and it's designed to be calm and grounded. It's not a medical lecture. It's a conversation. It addresses the emotional impact, the anxiety of wondering if today's the day you'll end up in the ER. That's a huge part of the adrenal life that clinical papers don't often touch on either.
There's also a significant issue with healthcare providers not being fully versed in this because it's a rare condition. I've read that many patients face delays in diagnosis because their symptoms, fatigue, weight loss, muscle weakness, are so nonspecific. Does the platform help with that advocacy piece, knowing how to talk to a doctor who might only see one Addison's patient in their entire career?
Absolutely. Advocacy is a core pillar. The resources provide tools for communicating with EMS and ER staff. Imagine being in the middle of a crisis. Your blood pressure is dropping, you're nauseous, you're confused, and you have to explain to an EMT that you need a specific injection of Solucortef immediately. You can't do that effectively when you're crashing. So the community emphasizes having crisis tools ready, medical alert jewelry, emergency cards, and the knowledge to insist on treatment. They teach you how to be your own expert, which is unfortunately a necessity when you have a rare disease.
It sounds like a lot of what Rick is doing is building health literacy. Research actually shows that when patients have better literacy about their condition, the rate of hospitalizations drops. It's not just about feeling better emotionally, it's about better clinical outcomes.
That's a vital point. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism noted that a lack of patient education is a primary driver for preventable adrenal crises. By providing a library of books, guides, and articles that focus on sick day management and early detection, My Adrenal Life is filling a gap that the traditional healthcare system often leaves open. Doctors have 15 minutes for an appointment. They can't cover every nuance of how to live. This platform is the 24/7 support that covers those remaining 8,760 hours of the year.
I'm struck by the idea that this all started because one man wanted to help his wife. It's a very personal mission that's scaled globally. The website, the podcast, the community, it's all built on that fundamental belief that you shouldn't have to navigate this alone. It's about more than just hormones. It's about reclaiming a sense of agency over a body that feels unpredictable.
It really is. When you're diagnosed with a chronic, life-threatening condition, you often feel like a patient first and a person second. My Adrenal Life flips that. It acknowledges the medical reality, but focuses on the life part. It's about finding stability so you can get back to being a parent, a worker, or a friend. The peace of mind that comes from knowing there's a community of thousands who get it is probably the most effective medicine they offer.
It's a powerful reminder of how technology and community can transform a rare disease journey from one of constant fear into one of informed confidence. For anyone listening who's navigating this or who knows someone who is, these resources aren't just helpful, they're essential for building that safety net.
And for caregivers, it's a place to find their own voice. Rick's perspective as a caregiver advocate is a lighthouse for those who feel the pressure of being the guardian of their loved one's health. It tells them their experience matters too, and that they have a place to learn and lean on others.
If you or someone you care about is living with adrenal insufficiency, I highly recommend looking into the work Rick and the community are doing at My Adrenal Life. It's a rare thing to find a resource that's both clinically grounded and so deeply human. Share this episode with someone who might need a reminder that they aren't navigating this path alone.